Consider this. After a hard day's work, you turn on the TV searching through to find something interesting to watch. While skipping through channels, you stumble on an interview with the self-made man, the one who stands tall, shoulders back, chest puffed with pride. He's the one who claims he built his empire from nothing, who insists his success is purely his own doing. You've heard his story 1,000 times, the rags to riches tale, the lone wolf who defied the odds, the hero who conquered adversity through sheer willpower. But today, something feels off. Today, you see the cracks in the facade. You notice the invisible hands that lifted him, the parents who sacrificed, the mentors who guided, the society that provided the infrastructure for his dreams. You see the luck that smiled upon him, the timing that aligned perfectly, the privileges he never acknowledged. And then you look at yourself. You see your own struggles, your own efforts, your own sacrifices. But you also see the barriers you couldn't overcome, the doors that remain closed, the opportunities that never came. And you wonder, is the self-made man truly self-made? Or is he just a product of circumstance, a beneficiary of forces he neither controlled nor created? This is the great question that haunts us all. Are we the architects of our destiny, or are we merely actors in a play written by forces beyond our control? The myth of the self-made man is seductive. It tells us that success is a matter of grit, determination, and hard work. It whispers that if we just try harder, if we just push a little more, we too can rise above our circumstances. But what if this myth is a lie? What if it's not just a lie, but a dangerous one? One that blinds us to the truth of our interconnectedness, our dependence on others, and the randomness of life itself. Consider this paradox. The self-made man claims independence, yet his existence is deeply intertwined with the world around him. He builds his fortune on roads he didn't pave, with tools he didn't invent, using knowledge he didn't create. He thrives in a society that provides stability, education, and opportunity, yet he denies its role in his success. He stands on the shoulders of giants, yet he insists he climb the mountain alone. How can this be? How can someone so deeply embedded in a web of relationships, systems, and luck claim to be self-made? The myth of the self-made man is not just a story we tell ourselves. It's a story that shapes our identity, our values, and our sense of worth. It tells us that success is a reflection of our character, that failure is a sign of weakness, and that we are solely responsible for our fate. But what if this narrative is incomplete? What if it ignores the role of privilege, luck, and systemic forces? What if it blinds us to the truth that no one is truly self-made? That we are all products of circumstance, shaped by the world as much as we shape it? This is not just an intellectual exercise. It's an emotional and existential reckoning. To question the myth of the self-made man is to question the very foundation of our identity. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, inequality, and the randomness of life. It challenges us to rethink our notions of success, failure, and responsibility. And it asks us to consider a radical possibility. What if we are not the sole authors of our lives? What if our story is co-written by forces we can neither see nor control? As you sit with these questions, you feel a tension building within you. It's the tension between the story you've been told and the reality you've experienced. It's the tension between the desire to believe in your own agency and the recognition of your dependence on others. It's the tension between the myth of the self-made man and the truth of your interconnectedness. And as this tension grows, you realize that this is not just a philosophical debate, it's a deeply personal one. It's about who you are, what you value, and how you see the world. But this is only the beginning. To truly understand the myth of the self-made man, we must dig deeper. We must explore the hidden forces that shape our lives, the psychological and philosophical roots of this myth, and the unseen consequences it has on our personal and societal realities. We must confront the uncomfortable truths it reveals about power, privilege, and the human condition. And we must ask ourselves, if the self-made man is a myth, what does that mean for us? How do we navigate a world that celebrates individualism while ignoring interdependence? How do we reclaim our agency without denying our vulnerability? The answers to these questions are not easy, but they are essential. They force us to confront the complexity of life, the randomness of fate, and the beauty of our interconnectedness. They challenge us to rewrite the story we've been told and to create a new one that acknowledges the truth of our circumstances while empowering us to rise above them. But before we can do that, we must first understand the hidden problem at the heart of this myth and the psychological and philosophical forces that sustain it. The myth of the self-made man is not just a story, it's a psychological trap. It feeds on our deepest desires and fears, shaping how we see ourselves and the world. At its core, it's a narrative of control. It tells us that we are the masters of our fate, that our success or failure is entirely within our hands. But this narrative is not just empowering, it's also isolating. It places the weight of the world on our shoulders, forcing us to bear the burden of our circumstances alone. And when we fail, as we inevitably do, it tells us that the fault lies entirely with us. Why does this myth persist? Why do we cling to the idea of the self-made man even when the evidence suggests otherwise? The answer lies in the intersection of psychology, philosophy, and societal conditioning. To understand the roots of this myth, we must delve into the human psyche and the forces that shape it. Human beings are wired to seek control. From the moment we are born, we strive to make sense of the world, to impose order on chaos, to find meaning in the randomness of life. This need for control is not just a survival mechanism. It's a fundamental aspect of our identity. It gives us a sense of agency, a belief that we can shape our destiny. But this need for control can also lead us astray. When faced with uncertainty, we often create narratives that simplify reality, that give us the illusion of control even when it doesn't exist. The myth of the self-made man is one such narrative. It simplifies the complexity of success, reducing it to a matter of individual effort and willpower. It tells us that if we just work hard enough, if we just believe in ourselves, we can overcome any obstacle. This narrative is comforting. It gives us a sense of agency in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. But it's also deceptive. It ignores the role of luck, privilege, and systemic forces, creating a false sense of control that can lead to guilt, shame, and self-blame when things don't go as planned. Psychologists call this the illusion of control, a cognitive bias that leads us to overestimate our ability to influence outcomes. It's the reason we believe that we can beat the odds, that we can control the uncontrollable. And it's the reason we cling to the myth of the self-made man, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. The illusion of control is not just a cognitive bias, it's a coping mechanism. It helps us navigate a world that is often unpredictable and unfair, but it also blinds us to the truth of our circumstances, trapping us in a cycle of self-blame and denial. The myth of the self-made man is also rooted in a philosophical tradition that celebrates individualism. From the Enlightenment thinkers who championed reason and self-determination to the Romantic poets who exalted the individual spirit, Western philosophy has long placed the individual at the center of the universe. This tradition has given us many gifts: freedom, autonomy, the belief in human potential. But it has also created a culture that glorifies the individual at the expense of the collective, that sees success as a personal achievement rather than a social one. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most provocative thinkers of the 19th century, explored this tension in his concept of the Übermensch, the individual who rises above societal norms and creates their own values. Nietzsche saw the Übermensch as a symbol of human potential, a rejection of the herd mentality that he believed stifled creativity and greatness. But Nietzsche's vision was also deeply individualistic. It celebrated the lone genius, the self-made man who defies convention and forges their own path. This vision has had a profound influence on our culture, shaping our ideals of success and ambition. But it has also contributed to the myth of the self-made man, reinforcing the idea that success is a matter of individual effort and willpower. But Nietzsche's philosophy also contains a warning. He recognized that the pursuit of individualism could lead to isolation, alienation, and a loss of meaning. He saw that the Übermensch, for all their greatness, was also vulnerable to loneliness, to despair, to the weight of their own ambition. Nietzsche's vision of the self-made man is not just a celebration of individualism, it's also a critique of its limitations. It challenges us to consider the cost of our obsession with self-reliance, to question whether the pursuit of greatness is worth the sacrifice of our humanity.
The myth of the self-made man is also deeply embedded in the cultural fabric of the United States. The American dream, the belief that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through hard work and determination, is a cornerstone of American identity. It's a story of hope, of possibility, of upward mobility. But it's also a story of individualism, of self-reliance, of the belief that success is a personal achievement rather than a collective one. The American dream has inspired millions to pursue their dreams, to strive for a better life. But it has also created a culture that glorifies the self-made man, that sees success as a reflection of individual effort rather than systemic opportunity. This culture has shaped our values, our policies, and our sense of identity. It has created a society that celebrates the winners and blames the losers, that sees poverty as a moral failing rather than a systemic issue. And it has perpetuated the myth of the self-made man, reinforcing the idea that success is a matter of individual effort and willpower. But the American dream is also a myth. It ignores the role of privilege, luck, and systemic forces in shaping success. It ignores the fact that not everyone starts from the same place, that not everyone has the same opportunities, that not everyone can overcome the barriers they face. And it ignores the truth that success is not just a personal achievement, it's also a social one, shaped by the relationships, systems, and communities that support us. The myth of the self-made man is not just a story, it's a burden. It places the weight of success entirely on the individual, forcing us to bear the responsibility for our circumstances alone. It tells us that if we succeed, it's because we worked hard, because we deserved it. And if we fail, it's because we didn't work hard enough, because we didn't deserve it. This narrative is not just empowering, it's also oppressive. It creates a culture of blame, of shame, of self-doubt. It forces us to internalize our failures, to see them as a reflection of our character rather than our circumstances. But the truth is that no one is truly self-made. We are all products of circumstance, shaped by the world as much as we shape it. We are all dependent on others, on the systems and structures that support us, on the luck and privilege that give us opportunities. To deny this truth is to deny our humanity, to ignore the interconnectedness that binds us all. And to embrace this truth is not to deny our agency, it's to reclaim it, to recognize that our success is not just a personal achievement, but a collective one. But this is only the beginning. To truly understand the myth of the self-made man, we must explore its unseen consequences, the ways it shapes our personal and societal realities, the ways it traps us in a cycle of self-blame and denial, the ways it blinds us to the truth of our interconnectedness. And we must ask ourselves, how do we break free from this myth? How do we reclaim our agency without denying our vulnerability? How do we create a new narrative, one that acknowledges the truth of our circumstances while empowering us to rise above them? The myth of the self-made man doesn't just live in our minds. It shapes our reality. It influences how we see ourselves, how we treat others, and how we navigate the world. Its consequences are subtle but profound, weaving themselves into the fabric of our personal and societal lives. To understand the full impact of this myth, we must examine how it silently distorts our perceptions, perpetuates inequality, and traps us in cycles of self-blame and isolation. Imagine carrying a boulder up a mountain. You've been told that the summit is your destiny, that the strength to get there lies entirely within you. You push, you strain, you sacrifice. And when you stumble, when the weight becomes too much, you blame yourself. You tell yourself you're not strong enough, not determined enough, not good enough. This is the personal toll of the myth of the self-made man. It turns success into a solitary burden, a test of character that leaves no room for error. This narrative doesn't just affect those who fail, it also haunts those who succeed. Even the most accomplished individuals often feel a lingering sense of inadequacy, a fear that they don't truly deserve their success. They worry that their achievements are a fluke, that they'll be exposed as frauds. Psychologists call this imposter syndrome, and it's a direct byproduct of the self-made myth. When success is framed as a reflection of individual effort, it becomes a fragile thing, constantly at risk of being undone by the next failure. But the personal toll goes deeper. The myth of the self-made man isolates us, cutting us off from the support and connection we need to thrive. It tells us that asking for help is a sign of weakness, that relying on others is a failure of character. This mindset breeds loneliness, anxiety, and burnout. It forces us to navigate life's challenges alone, even when we don't have to. And it blinds us to the truth that we are not meant to carry our burdens alone, that we are stronger, wiser, and more resilient when we lean on others. The myth of the self-made man doesn't just distort our personal lives, it also shapes our society. It fuels the illusion of meritocracy, the belief that success is a reflection of individual merit rather than systemic opportunity. This illusion is seductive. It tells us that the world is fair, that everyone has an equal shot at success, that those who rise to the top deserve to be there. But this illusion is also dangerous. It blinds us to the structural barriers that limit opportunity, perpetuating inequality and injustice. Consider the entrepreneur who builds a billion-dollar company. The self-made myth tells us that his success is a testament to his brilliance, his hard work, his determination. But what about the parents who paid for his education? The teachers who inspired him? The luck that placed him in the right place at the right time? The society that provided the infrastructure for his business? The staff of his company who worked tirelessly meeting financial targets and quotas? Economic and tax laws that favors the rich? His network of rich friends and associates? The myth of the self-made man erases these contributions, reducing success to a matter of individual effort. And in doing so, it justifies the status quo, reinforcing the idea that those at the top deserve their wealth and power, while those at the bottom deserve their poverty and struggle. This illusion of meritocracy has real-world consequences. It shapes our policies, our institutions, and our attitudes. It leads us to cut social programs, to oppose wealth redistribution, to blame the poor for their poverty. It creates a culture of indifference where we turn a blind eye to systemic injustice because we believe that success is a matter of individual effort, and it perpetuates inequality, ensuring that the rich get richer while the poor get left behind. The myth of the self-made man doesn't just isolate individuals, it erodes communities. It fosters a culture of hyper-individualism where we see ourselves as separate from others, as competitors rather than collaborators. This mindset undermines the bonds that hold society together, replacing cooperation with competition, solidarity with self-interest. It creates a world where we are all islands, disconnected from one another, fighting for our own survival. This erosion of community has profound consequences. It weakens our social fabric, making it harder for us to come together to solve collective problems. It fosters distrust, resentment, and division, pitting us against one another in a zero-sum game. And it leaves us vulnerable to exploitation, as those in power use the myth of the self-made man to justify their dominance, to pit us against one another, to distract us from the systemic forces that shape our lives. But the cultural toll goes even deeper. The myth of the self-made man distorts our values, shaping what we celebrate and what we ignore. It glorifies wealth, power, and status, while devaluing compassion, cooperation, and community. It tells us that success is a matter of individual achievement rather than collective well-being, and it blinds us to the truth that we are all interconnected, that our fates are intertwined, that we rise and fall together. Perhaps the most insidious consequence of the self-made myth is the cycle of self-blame it creates. When we internalize the idea that success is a matter of individual effort, we also internalize the idea that failure is a reflection of our character. This mindset traps us in a cycle of guilt, shame, and self-doubt. It forces us to bear the weight of our circumstances alone, even when those circumstances are beyond our control. This cycle of self-blame is not just emotionally draining, it's also psychologically damaging. It erodes our self-esteem, our sense of worth, our belief in our own potential. It makes us feel powerless, hopeless, and alone. And it blinds us to the truth that failure is not a reflection of our character. It's a natural part of life, a product of circumstances, luck, and systemic forces. But the cycle of self-blame doesn't just affect individuals, it also affects society. It creates a culture of victim blaming, where we blame the poor for their poverty, the sick for their illness, the marginalized for their oppression. It distracts us from the systemic forces that shape our lives, focusing our attention on individual behavior rather than collective responsibility. And it perpetuates inequality, ensuring that those at the bottom remain trapped in cycles of poverty and despair. The myth of the self-made man is not just a story, it's a trap. It distorts our perceptions, perpetuates inequality, and erodes our sense of connection. It blinds us to the truth of our circumstances, forcing us to bear the weight of our failures alone. And it creates a culture of hyper-individualism, where we see ourselves as separate from others, as competitors rather than collaborators. But the trap is not inescapable. To break free, we must first recognize the myth for what it is. A narrative that simplifies the complexity of success, that ignores the role of luck, privilege, and systemic forces. We must challenge the illusion of meritocracy, the culture of hyper-individualism, the cycle of self-blame. And we must create a new narrative, one that acknowledges the truth of our interconnectedness, that celebrates collective well-being as much as individual achievement, that empowers us to rise above our circumstances without denying our vulnerability. But how do we do this? How do we break free from the myth of the self-made man? The answer lies in a radical shift in perspective, one that challenges everything we've been told about success, failure, and responsibility. It's a shift that requires us to rethink our values, to redefine our sense of identity, to reclaim our agency in a world that often feels beyond our control. And it's a shift that begins with a simple but profound realization. No one is truly self-made. We are all products of circumstance, shaped by the world as much as we shape it. And it's only by embracing this truth that we can begin to create a new narrative, one that empowers us to rise above our circumstances, to build a better world, to become the authors of our own lives. The myth of the self-made man is a cage, but it's a cage with an open door. We've been conditioned to walk in circles, to believe that success is a solitary journey, that failure is a personal flaw, that we are alone in our struggles. But the truth is that we don't have to stay trapped. We can break free, not by rejecting the idea of agency, but by redefining it. Not by denying our circumstances, but by understanding them. Not by isolating ourselves, but by embracing our interconnectedness. This is the rebellion, a radical shift in perspective that challenges the myth of the self-made man and empowers us to create a new narrative. The first step in breaking free is to redefine what success means. The self-made myth tells us that success is about wealth, power, and status, about climbing to the top of the mountain, no matter the cost. But this definition is narrow, limiting, and ultimately hollow. It reduces success to a material achievement, ignoring the deeper, more meaningful aspects of life: connection, purpose, and well-being. To rebel against the myth, we must expand our definition of success. We must ask ourselves, what truly matters to us? What brings us joy, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose? Is it wealth and power, or is it relationships, creativity, and contribution? By redefining success on our own terms, we can escape the narrow confines of the self-made myth and create a life that is rich in meaning, even if it's not rich in material terms. This shift in perspective is not just philosophical, it's practical. When we stop chasing external markers of success, we free ourselves from the constant pressure to prove our worth. We can focus on what truly matters, on building a life that aligns with our values and aspirations. And we can find success in the everyday moments, in the connections we build, the love we share, the impact we make. The second step in breaking free is to acknowledge the role of circumstance in shaping our lives. This doesn't mean denying our agency. It means recognizing that our agency exists within a context, that we are shaped by forces beyond our control. It means understanding that success is not just a matter of individual effort, but also of luck, privilege, and systemic opportunity. To rebel against the myth, we must confront the uncomfortable truth that not everyone starts from the same place, that not everyone has the same opportunities, that not everyone can overcome the barriers they face. This doesn't diminish our achievements. It puts them in perspective. It allows us to see our success as a product of both effort and circumstance, of both individual and collective forces. This shift in perspective is liberating. It frees us from the burden of self-blame, from the constant pressure to prove our worth. It allows us to celebrate our achievements without denying the role of luck and privilege. And it empowers us to use our success to lift others up, to create opportunities for those who are less fortunate, to build a world where everyone has a shot at success. The third step in breaking free is to embrace our interdependence. The self-made myth tells us that success is a solitary journey, that we must rely on ourselves and no one else. But this is a lie. No one succeeds alone. We are all dependent on others, on the parents who raised us, the teachers who inspired us, the friends who supported us, the society that provided the infrastructure for our dreams. To rebel against the myth, we must reject the culture of hyper-individualism and embrace the truth of our interconnectedness. We must recognize that we are stronger, wiser, and more resilient when we lean on others, when we collaborate, when we build communities of support and solidarity. This doesn't mean giving up our agency, it means expanding it, recognizing that our power lies not just in our individual efforts, but in our collective strength. This shift in perspective is transformative. It allows us to see success not as a personal achievement, but as a collective one. It empowers us to build networks of support, to create communities of care, to lift each other up. And it reminds us that we are not alone, that we are part of something bigger, that we rise and fall together. The fourth step in breaking free is to challenge the illusion of meritocracy. The self-made myth tells us that success is a reflection of individual merit, that those who rise to the top deserve to be there. But this illusion is dangerous. It blinds us to the structural barriers that limit opportunity, perpetuating inequality and injustice. To rebel against the myth, we must confront the uncomfortable truth that success is not just a matter of individual effort, but also of systemic opportunity. We must recognize that the game is rigged, that not everyone has an equal shot at success, that those at the top often benefit from privileges they didn't earn. This doesn't mean denying the value of hard work. It means recognizing that hard work is not enough, that we must also address the systemic forces that shape our lives. This shift in perspective is revolutionary. It empowers us to challenge the status quo, to fight for systemic change, to create a world where everyone has a shot at success. It allows us to see success not as a personal achievement, but as a collective responsibility. And it reminds us that we are not just individuals, we are part of a society, and we have a responsibility to make that society fairer, more just, more equitable. The fifth step in breaking free is to cultivate radical self-compassion. The self-made myth tells us that failure is a reflection of our character, that we must blame ourselves for our shortcomings. But this mindset is toxic. It traps us in cycles of guilt, shame, and self-doubt, eroding our self-esteem and our sense of worth. To rebel against the myth, we must learn to treat ourselves with kindness, to recognize that failure is not a reflection of our character, but a natural part of life. We must embrace the truth that we are human, that we are imperfect, that we are doing the best we can in a world that is often beyond our control. This doesn't mean giving up on growth. It means recognizing that growth comes from self-compassion, not self-criticism. This shift in perspective is healing. It allows us to break free from the cycle of self-blame, to embrace our imperfections, to find strength in our vulnerability. It empowers us to see failure not as a personal flaw, but as an opportunity for growth. And it reminds us that we are worthy of love and respect, not because of what we achieve, but because of who we are. Breaking free from the myth of the self-made man is not easy. It requires us to challenge deeply ingrained beliefs, to confront uncomfortable truths, to redefine our sense of identity. But it's also liberating. It allows us to reclaim our agency, to embrace our interconnectedness, to create a life that is rich in meaning and purpose. The rebellion begins within. It begins with a shift in perspective, with a willingness to see ourselves and the world in a new light. It begins with the recognition that we are not alone, that we are part of something bigger, that we rise and fall together. And it begins with the courage to create a new narrative, one that acknowledges the truth of our circumstances, that celebrates our interconnectedness, that empowers us to rise above our limitations and become the authors of our own lives. But this is not the end of the journey. It's only the beginning. To truly break free, we must take this new perspective into the world, into our relationships, into our communities. We must use it to challenge the status quo, to fight for systemic change, to create a world where everyone has a shot at success. And we must use it to inspire others, to show them that they too can break free, that they too can create a life that is rich in meaning and purpose. The ultimate truth is this: you were never meant to do it alone. The myth of the self-made man is not just a lie, it's a distortion of reality, a reduction of the vast interconnected web of life into a solitary thread. It tells us we are islands in a sea of chaos, but the truth is far more beautiful, far more complex, and far more liberating. The truth is that we are all part of a tapestry, woven together by the threads of circumstance, connection, and collective effort. And it's only by embracing this truth that we can truly break free. The myth of the self-made man thrives on the illusion of separation. It tells us that we are distinct, autonomous, and independent, that our success or failure is entirely our own. But this illusion is just that, an illusion. In reality, we are deeply interconnected, shaped by the people, systems, and forces around us. Our achievements are not just our own, they are the product of countless influences, seen and unseen. Consider the air you breathe. It's a gift from the trees, the oceans, the atmosphere, a collective effort of nature that sustains your life. Consider the language you speak. It's a gift from generations of thinkers, writers, and speakers who shaped the words you use to express yourself. Consider the opportunities you've had. They're a gift from the society that built the schools, the roads, the institutions that made your success possible. None of this is yours alone. It's all part of a vast interconnected system that supports and sustains you. The illusion of separation is not just a philosophical idea, it's a psychological trap. It isolates us, cutting us off from the support and connection we need to thrive. It forces us to bear the weight of our struggles alone, even when we don't have to. And it blinds us to the truth that we are not islands. We are part of a larger whole, bound together by the threads of life. The ultimate truth is not just that we are interconnected, it's that our power lies in our interdependence. The myth of the self-made man tells us that strength is about independence, about standing alone. But the truth is that strength is about connection, about standing together. It's about recognizing that we are stronger, wiser, and more resilient when we lean on others, when we collaborate, when we build communities of support and solidarity. This is not just a feel-good idea, it's a practical truth. Studies have shown that social connection is one of the strongest predictors of well-being, resilience, and success. People who have strong social networks are happier, healthier, and more successful than those who don't. They're better able to cope with stress, to overcome challenges, to achieve their goals, and they're more likely to feel a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives. The power of interdependence is not just about receiving support, it's also about giving it. When we help others, we strengthen our own sense of purpose and connection. We create a ripple effect of kindness and generosity that extends far beyond ourselves. And we build a world where everyone has a shot at success, where no one is left behind. The ultimate truth also lies in the paradox of agency. The myth of the self-made man tells us that agency is about control, about shaping the world to our will. But the truth is that agency is about understanding, about navigating the world as it is. It's about recognizing that we are not the sole authors of our lives, that we are co-authors, shaped by the forces around us, but also capable of shaping them in turn. This paradox is both humbling and empowering. It reminds us that we are not all-powerful, that we cannot control everything. But it also reminds us that we are not powerless, that we have the ability to influence our circumstances, to make choices, to create change. It's a delicate balance, one that requires us to embrace both our vulnerability and our strength, our limitations and our potential. The paradox of agency is not just a philosophical idea. It's a practical guide for living. It teaches us to focus on what we can control, to let go of what we can't, and to find meaning in the process. It empowers us to take responsibility for our lives, not by denying our circumstances, but by understanding them. And it reminds us that our power lies not in our ability to control the world, but in our ability to navigate it with grace, resilience, and purpose. The ultimate truth is also deeply personal. It's the realization that you are enough, not because of what you achieve, but because of who you are. The myth of the self-made man tells us that our worth is tied to our success, that we must constantly prove ourselves, that we are only as good as our last achievement. But the truth is that your worth is inherent, that you are valuable simply because you exist. This realization is liberating. It frees us from the constant pressure to prove our worth, to chase external markers of success. It allows us to embrace our imperfections, to find strength in our vulnerability, to see ourselves as whole and complete, just as we are. And it empowers us to live authentically, to pursue what truly matters to us, to create a life that is rich in meaning and purpose. The final realization is not just about self-acceptance, it's also about self-compassion. It's about recognizing that we are human, that we are imperfect, that we are doing the best we can in a world that is often beyond our control. It's about treating ourselves with kindness, with understanding, with love. And it's about extending that same compassion to others, recognizing that they too are enough, that they too are doing the best they can. The ultimate truth is not just a realization, it's a call to action. It's a call to rewrite the narrative, to create a new story about success, failure, and responsibility. It's a call to reject the myth of the self-made man and embrace the truth of our interconnectedness. It's a call to build a world where success is not just a personal achievement, but a collective one, where we lift each other up, where we create opportunities for everyone, where we rise and fall together. This new narrative is not just about changing how we see ourselves, it's about changing how we see the world. It's about recognizing that we are part of something bigger, that our fates are intertwined, that we have a responsibility to each other. It's about creating a culture of connection, of compassion, of collective well-being. And it's about using our power, not to dominate, but to uplift, not to exploit, but to empower. The call to action is not just for individuals, it's for society as a whole. It's a call to challenge the systems and structures that perpetuate inequality, to create a world where everyone has a shot at success. It's a call to build institutions that support and sustain us, to create policies that promote fairness and justice, to foster a culture that celebrates connection and collaboration. And it's a call to inspire others, to show them that they too can break free, that they too can create a life that is rich in meaning and purpose. The ultimate truth is this: you are not alone. You never were. The myth of the self-made man is a lie, a distortion of reality that isolates us and blinds us to the truth of our interconnectedness. But the truth is far more beautiful, far more complex, and far more liberating. The truth is that we are all part of a tapestry, woven together by the threads of circumstance, connection, and collective effort. And it's only by embracing this truth that we can truly break free. So take a moment to look around. See the people who have shaped you, the systems that have supported you, the world that has sustained you. See the threads that connect you to others, the bonds that hold you together, the collective effort that makes your life possible. And see yourself, not as a solitary figure, but as part of something bigger, something greater, something beautiful. The journey is not easy. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to see the world in a new light. But it's worth it. Because when we break free from the myth of the self-made man, we reclaim our agency, our connection, our humanity. We create a life that is rich in meaning and purpose. And we build a world where everyone has a shot at success, where no one is left behind. This is the ultimate truth. This is the final realization. And this is the beginning of a new story, one that we write together, one that celebrates our interconnectedness, one that empowers us to rise above our limitations and become the authors of our own lives. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was insightful and educative. If you like this video, do well to click like, share, and subscribe for more insightful videos like this. See you later. Bye.